Hello and welcome back to HateWatchers. Today we continue on with our reviews of House of the Dragon, with episode 3 entitled The Burning Mill. Let's hop right into the breakdown, which means spoilers ahead. We kick things off in the Riverlands, where some boys are comparing sword length, before they get into a sword measuring contest with some neighbor boys. But things escalate a little bit out of control.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Rhaenyra got a 2 for the price of 1 deal on a burial plot, so she chucks Ser Erryk and Ser Arryk down there, and reflects on her great savings. Rhaenys advises Rhaenyra that Alicent may be willing to make peace, and that she should try and reach Alicent and kiss and make out. Up. Then Rhaenys realizes that if they do kiss, she could sell tickets and host this event in an arena. Sir Criston Cole is humbly mulling over his new role as Hand of the King, but is also sporting a new pimp chain. While the small council discusses how to kick off this civil war, Sir Ironrod, Layer of Pipe, makes a dick joke. How classless. As a reward for warning Rhaenyra about Ser Arryk, the Queen of Hookers asks for a position in Rhaenyra's court, and Rhaenyra says that she does have an opening for the head fluffer position. Rhaenyra, feeling the rush of a spendthrift, looks for other ways to save money, deciding to send away Rhaena and 3 of her sons, saving a ton on their cast and crew expense. Daemon and Caraxes arrive at Haunted Harrenhal, where he's trying to complete some Skyrim side quest. He finds one guard and plays Got Your Nose with him, leading Sir Simon Strong to kneel before the almighty Got Your Nose champion. Daemon lays out his plan to rally 40,000 rivermen and garrison them at this haunted castle. Great idea. And when they're done discussing business, Daemon shares his thoughts on last week's presidential debate.
People should obey their liege lord, whatever his condition.
Cole, now sporting a Caesar cut, meets his royal slam buddy's posh brother, whose dickishness rivals Cole's own. Alicent turns to leave, but Cole says, "Who do you think you're kidding? I know you're patting your bra." She briefly feigns innocence before removing it and awarding it to Cole for him to take some hefty sniffs later on the road. We get a brief glimpse of a captured crewman from the Flying Dutchman, and Cole and his company ride out to war. Rhaenyra sits in on her war council, and this advisor just did a few lines in the bathroom, and he's feeling brilliant, suggesting that Rhaenyra should just fucking take all her dragons, fucking put them together or something, make one big dragon and call it fucking Dragonus Prime or some shit. That'd be fucking awesome, man. Yeah! While that guy sits there grinding his teeth, the rest of the advisors say, "Rhaenyra, sweetheart, why don't you go iron some sandwiches in Pentos for a while, and let us men do the war?" Rhaenyra sends off her children with some souvenirs from their time at Dragonstone. See you in Season 3 when we have a bigger budget. Helaena does her monthly 4 seconds of parenting before forgiving Alicent for putting Punani pounding, her prime pursuit, ahead of protecting progeny. Sir Foot Fetish whispers sweet rumors into Aegon's ear before asking if the kind king would like him to personally remove his boots. In King's Landing, the small folk are partying their pain away, and this guy is having a pretty good time until he finds out that this Jamoke is Dornish. He knows that the dumb Dornish will believe anything, so he tells them that he's the bastard son of Baelor the Brave, making him half-brother to Daemon and Viserys and uncle to Rhaenyra. His nephew the king arrives at the bar, and in stark contrast to his aunt Rhaenyra the Thrifty, picks up everyone's tab. Then the king goes to a pleasure house where he mocks his brother for banging the same sloot over and over for years, and Aemond responds by unleashing Little Vhagar on the crowd on his way out. With the kids gone, Rhaenyra finally has all the toys to herself. She opens up an old letter from Alicent, but it's just a missive where she claims to be a Dornish princess and says she can make Rhaenyra rich if she only sends her a small deposit first. Cole runs down Gwaine Hightower, who's gone off to look for a Motel 6 rather than camp on the muddy ground. Then Cole says it's getting dark, and Gwaine says, "Don't worry, Cole, Motel 6 will always leave the light on for you." Baela spots them down below, and she and Moondancer swoop down to buzz the Hightower. Reports of Cole's movements lead Rhaenyra's council to push for action now. Daemon, on the other hand, is already in a full-blown war with the leaky ceiling when a visitor tries to enter his room. He opens the door to find no one and goes in search of the person, instead finding young Rhaenyra doing some casual sewing. But
it was all a dream!
Back in reality, Daemon hardly remembers eating the shrooms that grow at the base of this tree when this lady tells him that he's gonna die here. Thanks for the spoiler warning, bitch witch! Rhaenyra asks the hooker to sneak her into King's Landing so she may prevent this war. She sneaks in as a naughty nun and follows Alicent into the Sept, where she says,
"Surprise, motherfucker!"
Rhaenyra pulls out a knife to emphasize that she comes in peace, and they, just have a nice chit-chat. Rhaenyra realizes that in her father's dying moments, he uttered the name of Aegon the Conqueror from the Song of Ice and Fire, and not Aegon the Frat Boy. As for Alicent,
it was at this moment that she knew. She fucked up.
Alicent says she needs to go tend to her garden of oopsie daisies and storms off, leaving Rhaenyra to think about how much money they're wasting lighting all of these candles. And the episode comes to an end. Well, we've reached that point in the video where we have to decide if this episode was a great watch or a hate watch. But this episode is just getting a debate watch designation. The whole thing was a bit fillery and a bit fan-fiction-y, and it all feels dull in comparison to last week's episode. Don't get me wrong, there are still some good scenes and some great acting here. And we're taking some final, big steps toward the Dance of Dragons, and seeing the sort of power plays and large-scale troop movements in the prelude to war that I loved about Game of Thrones. But last week's episode just set a high bar for these kind of setup episodes. I would have liked to have seen the Battle of the Brackens and the Blackwoods at the beginning, but I get that there's a budget and not every show gets $180 million to squander. Still, the scene hits on a recurring theme of this season where the small folk pay the price for the games of the royals without a second thought from the highborn. With tensions boiling over and King's Landing beating down the door of the Red Keep after the hanging of the rat catchers, the common folk may soon play an important role if they further tire of being neglected, exploited, and killed. I also thought that this episode did a good job of showing us how quickly Aegon may be bringing down the kingdom around him. He's elevated his drinking buddies to the Kingsguard to further surround himself with yes-men. He's removed Otto as hand, and now his small council has no real adult in the room, leaving the kingdom led by the weak and the foolish. And he let Sir Larys Clubfoot's burning rumor mill get to his head, leading him to foolishly revert to his old bullying ways and alienate his strongest ally Aemond. The guy who's been a one-eyed wild card since he was 11, rider of the largest dragon around, and the newly minted second in line to the throne. Not someone who you want to go around humiliating for his Oedipus complex, especially when he's willing to serve dong to millions of people. Speaking of which, there were some pretty explicit sexual scenes at this point in the episode, one of which is definitely going to leave a mark. I think they went a tad too far there, but maybe that's just me. Now there's two more scenes I want to focus in on, one that I liked and one that has a lot of problems. First off, we had Daemon's excursion to Harrenhal. It came with some great shots of him flying into the castle, and an interesting conversation with the local strong in charge that helps bring Daemon down to earth a bit. But I was also glad that Harrenhal retained its haunted nature that's spoken of in the books. Daemon has a vision of a young Rhaenyra talking about cleaning up his messes, and this is finally the thing that seems to get through to Daemon, and makes him rethink his actions and how he's treated and used Rhaenyra to elevate his own station. True change can only come from within, and perhaps this will be the catalyst to get Daemon to better listen to his queen. Now the last scene of the episode where Rhaenyra comes to speak with Alicent has a lot of problems with it. Chief among these problems is that this is the third episode in a row where we have some goofy-ass B is for Bozo level plan where someone sneaks into the opposing faction's stronghold and it almost works. Rhaenyra was an extremely recognizable person in King's Landing, even without her hair showing, but she walks without issue through the city and into the Sept. Okay. Even after that, Alicent has a ton to gain from having Rhaenyra taken captive. Far too much to let her walk. You could argue that Alicent wants to rule behind the scenes just as much as she wants to quash any claims to the throne other than her son's, and as such she wouldn't risk being killed by Rhaenyra. But she looks set to let her walk, and it's just too illogical, and it pulls you out of the story. This is definitely not in the book also, which rubs people the wrong way even further. But taking the scene as it is, it does introduce a new dynamic to the power struggle and the two characters' former friendship. Alicent now knows she fucked up, and that she's well and truly fighting solely for her son's hold on the throne, rather than hiding behind Viserys' supposed wishes. Alicent won't be swayed and says it's simply too late to stop everything now, as she chooses villainy over somebody she used to know. And Rhaenyra now feels more sure than ever in her claim to the throne, and, having heard from the wicked bitch herself that war is unavoidable, may find a new resolve with which to prosecute this war. Rhaenyra is also shown, once again, to be very purposeful in her line of questioning. In the last episode, she knew to drill further down on Daemon, asking him what his instructions were if Aemond couldn't be found. And here, she digs even deeper and asks about her father's dying words. It's a sign of a good ruler who knows how to drill down on what's really at issue and consider everything before forming her opinions and decisions. It's a well-acted scene, and I understand what they were going for, wanting to play up Alicent and Rhaenyra's former bond and show the tragedy of what these old friends are about to do to each other's families. But the circumstances around the scene are too absurd to accept, even though the scene itself had some good aspects about it. I mean, Rhaenyra's council full of warhawks look way more reasonable when you see that this was her plan. Another minor complaint you'll see around is that Helaena is pretty damn different from her book counterpart. Playing the character this way, where she comes off as aloof and uncaring, was definitely a stylistic choice. Maybe it'll pay off if they end up leaning into her power of visions, but in the meantime, it has some questioning Helena's portrayal. So, while we still got some good, well-acted scenes, this episode didn't quite continue the momentum that episode 2 built up. But it looks like the next episode is going to start raining down arrows and dragonfire, so I'm looking forward to episode 4 finally turning up the heat.
Good. To war, then.
What did you think about this episode? Have you had your fill of setup episodes yet? Do you think the slower, methodical approach to this season's story will pay off in the end? Like Bela, is violence your first thought when you see Criston Cole? Let us know in the comments. And remember to hit that thumbs up if you liked the video, and subscribe to HateWatchers to stay up to date on House of the Dragon. Thank you for playing Got Your Nose with us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.